by 2030, we want to have 75% of loads in North America on cold. Not 75% of Tide loads even, but 75% of the market loads. So the reason Tide Coldwater was important to me and our entire team is we're really a science-based organization. And we see life cycle assessment as by far the best science when it comes to sustainability, because it looks at the total impact of a product from the starting point, making the raw materials, to the end of life for the product, which for us is what goes down the drain as well as what happens with the packaging. And if you look across the life cycle of doing a load of laundry, almost 70% of the carbon footprint happens in the consumer use phase of doing that load of laundry. If a consumer moves from hot to cold, it's a 90% reduction in the emissions. If they move from warm to cold, it's a 70% reduction in the emissions. And as we looked at that, we wanted to have the biggest impact we could as Tide. If we could get 75% of the loads in North America to cold, we saw that we could avoid 27 plus million tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, which is just a massive impact. That's the equivalent emissions of powering both New York and San Francisco for an entire year, or 10x the annual operating emissions of Procter & Gamble. The two things we needed to do was, number one, reassure them that with Tide, you could still get that deep down clean on cold. And then second, we tried a lot of different messaging on how do you incent people to make that change. And at this point, talking about switch to cold and reduce your carbon footprint, it's something that's interesting to people, but it doesn't necessarily drive enough action. What we found is when we could communicate switch to cold and save up to $150 per year, that's where we could really start having a big impact. And we were able to quickly go from high 40s on percent of loads on cold up to 56% of loads on cold in the first year of activation. We've had some great partnerships.